Today, it is a great pleasure to welcome Clary Palyvou, Professor Emerita at Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and a distinguished scholar in the fields of the history of architecture and cultural heritage management. Her research on the architecture and art of the prehistoric Aegean has made a substantial contribution to the study and preservation of major archaeological sites, including Acrotyrion Thera, Knossos, Mycenae, as well as to international heritage initiatives through her work with organizations such as UNESCO and ICOMOS. In addition to her broader scholarly work, she has carried out a long-term research project on Thracia, an endeavor through which many of us here have had the honor of collaborating closely with her. Thank you very much for being with us today, Professor Palyvou, and the floor is yours.
Okay, the screen is mine then. Thank you very much, Katerina, for your kind words. And thank you all for being here, there, wherever. And thank you for inviting me to this, to participate in this very interesting series of lectures. You know, I must say that I like the title very much. I mean, the word dialogue is a very powerful and multi-layered word with many meanings, and I think it fits well when juxtaposing the past and the present. And as you will see, hopefully, what I will be talking about and presenting is very much along this line of thought, I hope. All right, so some general information to start with. The place is the southern Aegean region, and more specifically, the island of Santorini. Santorini is the modern name. The official name is Thera. Here already you have, if you like, juxtaposition between past and present. I mean, Santorini is well known today. Everybody knows it for its touristic, frenetic development. And Thera is the past, the past. The time is the mid-second millennium BC, and this is a time of prosperity for the Aegean region, and especially for Crete. Crete is ruling the waves, and Crete is very powerful and very much advanced at this time, and it has an influence that spreads all over the southern Aegean, but especially and very conspicuously on the island of Santorini. Santorini, after all, is only 60 nautical miles north of Crete. Actually, if you look straight to the south, sometimes very, very rare, but it does happen sometimes that we can actually see Crete on the horizon from Santorini, from Acrotyri. And it's a very, very impressive view because it spreads along the whole horizon, and then next day it's gone, it disappears. But I'm just thinking in terms of how the people of Santorini at all times, all periods of history would have felt towards Crete. So Acrotyri is, or rather, let's just add that we are talking about the Minoan civilization. This is the name that Arthur Evans, the excavator of the Palace of Knossos, the name that he gave to the civilization, brand new finds for his time. And this was due, of course, to the mythical king Minos, but also to all that this name carries with him. I mean, Minos or Minos. And most important, the idea of the labyrinth. We will come back to this later on, okay? So we are talking about the second millennium BC, we're talking about Santorini and its relation to Crete, which at that time it's almost very much close to Minoan Cretan civilization. For me, and talking about architecture, as we will be doing in a while, I can hardly distinguish between the two sometimes. I know that Jan is smiling at this point. Okay. All right. How do we move on? All right. So, Santorini. Santorini is a volcanic island, which means that its fate has always been inextricably bonded to the activities of the volcano. Actually, not the volcano, but the volcanoes, because it's more than one. There were 5 different volcanoes underwater in this area, and through their activity, they built up little by little the island that we know today as Santorini or Thera in the past. This means that the prehistoric inhabitants of this island had a volcanic landscape surrounding them with strong colors. Today, you don't see it easily because it's covered with a very thick layer of ash. It also means that the material, the building material they have, you can see the picture on top here, was of a volcanic origin, which is basically ignimbrite, lavas, and tuff. And all these have very bright colors, as you can see in this picture. These stones are at Akrotiri, but they are outside, where they have been washed by rain and cleaned by the air. Whereas if you go inside, for those who have visited Akrotiri, you don't see the colorful effect of architecture anymore, because inside the sheltered part, the dust has covered everything. But you have to imagine a lot of color in the architecture we will be talking about in a while. And the third thing that has to do with the volcanic origin of Santorini is that the people, the inhabitants from the earliest times, which goes back to the 5th millennium BC, and even up to today, they were accustomed to earthquakes and to some extent to eruptions as well. Earthquakes for sure, because Santorini lies along the southern arc where the 2 plates crush one another, so we have a lot of earthquake activity. This, again, we should keep in mind, because the kind of architecture we will be looking at in a moment is very clearly earthquake resistant in concept. And this is very important because we will see some very advanced methods of protecting their buildings from the earthquakes. So there have been numerous eruptions of the volcano and numerous earthquakes, of course, but they are not always due to the activity of a volcano. But the eruptions, the most recent ones, are those you see here, 1926, 1886, 66, sorry, the one here. Very serious eruption, this one. And actually, even a few years ago, when was it? 2012, not so recent anymore, anyway. And even a few months ago, there's still some activity in the volcano of Santorini, which out of the 5 volcanoes I showed you before, the one at the center is the one that remains active. So the one you see here in the picture. So there is activity. It's not a dormant volcano. It is active, in fact. Out of all the various eruptions, there is one that is beyond our capability of conceiving what must have happened then. And this is what we call the Minoan eruption, which happened sometime in 16th century BC. It was a huge and immense, a terrifying event. You see here with the pictures, this is what Santorini looked like when it was inhabited by the prehistoric people that built Akrotiri, we were talking about. This is what it looked like. This is the effect of the tremendous eruption of the 16th century BC. What we know about this, the biggest volcanic eruption of the last 10,000 years, I'm not joking here. It was a paroxysmic event. It lasted only a few days, and there were no warning signs. Keep all this in mind when we will be discussing the end of Akrotiri, how it happened so fast that the people didn't have the time, to cope with these events. The height of ash column, you see here, was 35 kilometers, unbelievable. And the magma ejected some 150 billion tons. So we are indeed talking about a tremendous event here. And this is Santorini after the eruption had stopped, with enormous amounts of ash, pumice, covering all the island and extending. You see here, all this is new land where the airport is today. This is new land in the sense that it is all made of pumice, volcanic ash. The wind was blowing in this direction, so it expanded the island in this direction here. So, the archaeological history of Santorini begins in 1967 with the arrival of Spiridon Marinatos. You see him here at the southern coast of Santorini. Here is the nearby village is called Akrotiri, so the archaeological site has taken the same name. Marinatos chose to dig in this area very wisely. He was a wise man. I mean, he was from Kefalonia, and people are really between crazy and wise. So he chose this part because it has a safe harbor, because the southern part of the island is more protected from the northern winds, and for many other reasons which we need not go into detail at this point. What he was looking, I mean, he came from Crete. He was digging in Crete at that time, along with Evans, whom he admired very much, and he was very much, aware of the Minoan civilization of Crete. The problem at that time, I mean, 1967, was what happened. Wait a minute here. The open question is, what caused the end of the Minoan civilization? A big story, I won't go into it, but one of the ideas, I mean, that crossed the mind of Marinatos is perhaps the eruption of the volcano was the cause of this abrupt end in Crete. So he came looking for evidence for this idea. What he did not expect, really, is that he was going to dig, he had to dig a layer of ash that is between 8 and 20 meters thick. It's a lot of work until you find the archaeological evidence he was looking for. You can see all the pumice here in different layers, and you see that there is a piece of wall that is showing above the ash. So what he did not expect, that this wall was part of the third story of a building still standing more or less. You see, we have the first floor here. You don't see the whole of it, but it's somewhere here. Ground floor in British terms. You have a second floor and a third floor still standing. Amazing. That he didn't expect. So from that point on, he worked very fast. For 7 years, he dug a large part of the site. And the findings are unbelievable in terms of the information they give us for this period of time. There's another picture of Marinatos. You see the ground floor, first floor, second, and third floor. This building is called Xesti 2, and it has not been excavated behind this facade. Again, another picture that shows the situation at the beginning of the excavation. You see this building, it has come to light, but here you have all the pumice still in situ, and you see the pumice here and different layers. What, of course, Marinatos didn't know, that behind this mass of ash lies the West House. This is what you saw before, and this is the West House. It's one of the best preserved and best known buildings at Akrotiri. What you see is a semi-basement and a first floor and a little bit of a second floor. And it's all real. I mean, there's no restoration done. apart from these buttresses made of reinforced concrete. Otherwise, it's still standing, and it's quite well preserved inside as well. So among the various treasures that we find in Akrotiri, a treasure, to my understanding, is that we find evidence, more than that, we find the form and even the structure of timber elements, timber furniture and timber elements, because timber as an organic material has disintegrated through the passing of the centuries. But this happened little by little, so it left, there was time to leave the imprints of the timber within the ash or within the clay mortar or in the buildings. And the result is these amazing finds. What you see here is the gypsum cast of a bed with unbelievable details. I mean, let me see the next slide here. This is gypsum, all right? And what you see here is the rope which has tied the mattress on the frame of the timber bed. Yeah. To make this even more clear, as we are digging, going down from top to bottom without knowing what's underneath, we find a lot of holes, By now we know, of course, that holes mean wood, that's some timber element. We can tell, when these are parts of the ceiling or the beams of the floor, but sometimes when you find a hole which goes straight down, we put our hand and the feeling is peculiar, then we stop and we pour plaster of Paris, gypsum, into the hole, and then we see it coming out from other holes, tip, 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 tip. There comes a point when, it's full, then we go out, smoke a cigarette, come back, and we start digging, and to our great surprise, we find furniture like what you see here. We have found several beds. Here you have 3 beds, 2, and this one is upside down. These specific beds are found outside the buildings on the debris of a building that has been destroyed. I don't want to go into too much detail, but anyway, just briefly, the end of Akrotiri, with the big eruption we were talking before, happened in 2 phases. So they did have a few weeks, let's say, of time. They left in the beginning when there were earthquakes, but they came back and they started cleaning and doing things. And at that point, they used probably the beds to carry either people that were wounded or to carry things outside. Anyway, we find them outside the buildings. So at the end, of course, they knew that this was for good, and they left because we didn't find almost no skeletons, which is clear proof that they left the island. So this is the best I can think of in terms of dialogues between past and present. I show this, first of all, let me say that it's again a gypsum cast of a small table. It's about 50 centimeters tall. I think you can see clearly enough that this is the imprint of the timber, okay? You can see all the carvings here, like plants, like all these details. And on top here, it was inlaid tiny little pieces of valuable stones, things like that. If you look at this picture, and I tease my colleagues sometimes, well, what do you think? What period of history do you think this is? Most of them will say Art Nouveau. So there you are, dialogues between past and present. So this, I think, is truly superb. And when you look at, when you go back to Santorini again and you look at the demolished, damaged buildings, and they look so, poor in a sense, think of the furniture they had, think of the dresses the ladies wore, and more things to come. All right, so here is a general map of the southern part of Santorini. The black part is the cover, the shelter, and the shelter is the excavated part. This is only part of the town. It expands all around, but we have no idea how far it goes because around here there is 20 meters thick layer of pumice. So even this technology of sound, what it's called, it doesn't work. Anyway, there is a lot of pumice here to the south. The coastline was much closer here, and here there must have been the harbor. It's a valley today, the one you see here, but we do know that there was seawater at this point. And this is a general map of the excavated part. Here you have the streets and the public squares. They're very well organized. Under the public spaces, especially the streets, there is a communal drainage system running throughout the settlement. And some general pictures. One thing I should say, this is the building we were looking at before. It faces an open space here, a very nice, well-organized public square. Here is another building. You see the entrance here, 2 windows, and the upper parts has collapsed, but we do have parts of it still surviving. So we're talking about a town, about a city, about an urban environment, which means that there are no courtyards, no places for animals and agricultural activities. There's quite a dense habitation system with the public spaces, as I said before, well organized. So we're talking about a town, about a very well organized town. Multi-story buildings is the rule at Akrotiri. We'll come back to that. 2-story buildings is the norm. Very, very few buildings have been found without an upper story. And 3 stories is, well, we have a few, and on very, very few with 4 different levels, if you include a basement, of course. So we're talking about a very bold architecture, and do keep in mind that these people are building on a seismic sensitive land, okay? So this is a public square, and here is another one. Oops, sorry. This is a summary of the main characteristics of the Thracian architecture, which I should emphasize is very, very much the same as the architecture we find on Crete. So we call it Minoan architecture in general. So what do we have? First of all, we have very high standards of design, both architectural and structural. Multi-story is what I mentioned before, 2 to 4 stories, all of them. Sophisticated circulation. I wish I could give a lecture just for this idea of circulation, because there is a lot of misunderstanding, which is due to the curse of the labyrinth, as I say. We have the labyrinth in the back of our mind when we are looking at Knossos, which is indeed a very difficult and complex site, difficult for us today to understand, and complexity, we take it as granted because, well, there's the labyrinth somewhere there. But no, really no. What we see in Minoan architecture is multiplicity of choice and hierarchy, choice of movement, of circulation, not complexity. And when by hierarchy, I mean that there are many ways of moving around a building, but they are not arbitrary. There's nothing arbitrary in architecture, by the way. They are not arbitrary. Each different line of circulation is for a specific reason, for bringing in and out, moving in and out, things, storage, workshops, for visitors, for whatever. Next, many openings. This is truly amazing. We look at this facade and it's so familiar to us today that you take it for granted. So what? Windows. Well, do think about our neighbors, in the Eastern Mediterranean at that time, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and so on. You will not see this kind of extrovert architecture, okay? So this is, again, something very bold and something that brings this kind of architecture so close to us today. Parenthesis, much closer than classical architecture does in a way, okay? Many openings, okay, highly perforated masses. Now, again, we are talking of a seismic sensitive architecture, region, and many openings is not very good for protecting from earthquakes. The more massive, the better. But here, they know what they are doing. They are very much aware of the vulnerability of their buildings, and they've taken good care of that. We will see it next. And how they do that? By applying a composite structural system, combining stone with wood. Timber is the hero, the unknown hero, Agnostos Eros, in Minoan architecture, because we don't find it as such, but it is everywhere. Now we're talking about the contribution of timber in architecture. So the majority of walls are made of rubble walls, okay, from local stone. The majority of stones, however, is also reinforced with timber elements. I have the feeling, and Jan can help me afterwards, that much more than we see that in Crete. So the timber reinforcement comes in two ways, horizontal and vertical. Horizontal is the most typical way of reinforcing a rubble wall. You see here some details. You see these three holes. Wherever you see hole, timber, okay? So these three holes correspond to these three beams. Behind this wall, there is transverse wall. You don't see it, but it's this wall. So the typical reinforcement is two longitudinal beams on the two faces of the wall. They are bonded together with transverse short stones. But here they add another one in the middle to make this bonding even stronger, because obviously they are aware that when it comes to an earthquake, the lateral forces, applied on a building, you have to secure the cooperation between all the walls involved. This, we see it also in this diagonal piece of wood, which I found at the very end of my research when I was doing my PhD. And I just couldn't believe my eyes, because the meaning, the idea of the diagonal doesn't exist in prehistoric architecture. And today we know very well the meaning in terms of the stability, the rigidity it offers to the corner, this piece of wood. So I had to go through all the buildings again to see if I had missed, because it's not always easy to see it. Sometimes it's full with sand, you have to clean it. And I found only two examples. To my understanding, this is a very emotional story of a brilliant mason who took the initiative to add this diagonal wood. I can even imagine his colleagues passing by and said, "What are you doing, you crazy man?" So he knew what he was doing, because perhaps he had seen one of his doings, one of his buildings collapse, and he realized that if they were bonded, they would have performed better. So this is an invention that did not become an innovation, because that's the only example we see. The others didn't believe him, they didn't follow him. Then we come to vertical timber reinforcement. That's very interesting, because here, for whatever I tell you, the origins come from Crete, okay? So we know that in Crete, this is a later development, timber reinforcement with vertical beams. We find it in Crete, and at the same time, more or less, it comes to Santorini as well. Here you see, again, the imprint of the timber. The timber is gone, but it's very, very clear. And if you look carefully, you can see here that there is a transverse beam. From the inside, there is the longitudinal, but I couldn't find the longitudinal on the face, on the facade. So then I put my hand, hoping that there will be no animal to bite me there, and looking around, and I found that there was such a beam, but it was about 20 centimeters inside, because this, I think, because this wall is very carefully done, and you can't see it here with lime plaster and so on. Anyway, this kind of vertical timber reinforcement comes straight from Crete, and it's a later advancement. Here you see how well unorganized and systematic it is. This was, as you saw before, the first building that Marinatus brought to light. So he immediately put cement, hopefully reinforced, we don't know, but hopefully. So wherever you see cement, this means that there was wood. The same goes when you visit Knossos or any other site on Crete which has been restored with cement. Cement was very much favored at the time by Evans and also by Marinatus. So there's cement here. The yellow is something I added with Photoshop, and this window is also I added because it's difficult to understand from the imprints. Now, as I said before, the building is not excavated behind, so we don't see what happens beyond. But we can tell, anticipate with absolute certainty that this system of vertical and horizontal timber is repeated at the interior facade, and at all the crossings there are transverse little beams joining, connecting the two levels, the two surfaces. So it's a very sophisticated system altogether. And as I said, it comes from Crete, here the Palace of Knossos, exactly the same system. Another way of building walls is ashlar technique. Ashlar technique, wait a minute. Ashlar walls do not have timber reinforcement. Well, I'll stop here. Okay. Now, this is quite impressive, and it looks very nice, but they are cheating a little bit, because actually what is dressed is only the facade. The interior, the rest of the stone, is roughly dressed, and actually in a shape triangular or like a pyramid, because the idea is that they want to fit the stones perfectly at the facade, and at the inside they don't care. And actually the ashlar stones cover half or 2/3 of the thickness. This is a section, okay? 2/3 of the wall, and the inside is backed with rubble stones, which anchor the two faces because they go into the gaps here. So this is the ashlar technique. Again, we have very good evidence from Akrotiri. You have here the continuation of what you saw before. This is the ground floor, and you have part of the upper floor. You have a projecting cornice made of ashlar here. And here you can see something else which is interesting. You can see the diminishing height of the ashlar rows as you go from bottom to top. And in fact, it's systematic. Every 2 rows they change, they make it shorter. Again, there is a meaning to that, but I have to move on because there's not much time. Okay. Ashlar cornerstones are very popular in Santorini, not so much in Crete. Again, I remind you the colors. You see, they're very, and this would have been very colorful. And in fact, what they were doing, they were playing with colors. Every 2 stones, they would change color. So there was a colorful architecture. Another third way of building walls is with mud bricks. Mud bricks there are 2 ways of using mud bricks to build walls. One is putting them in horizontal layers and creating load-bearing walls out of this technique. This is not the case at Akrotiri. All walls are rubble or stone. We do not have clay bricks horizontal. We do, however, have mud bricks set upright. This is one such mud brick. It's like 45 by 45. centimeters and 8 to 10 centimeters thick. You can see them still standing, but the whole idea is that they are set within a timber load-bearing frame, something like this. Again, you can see the imprints on the holes of this disintegrated timber frame, and you can see that there were 3 such mud bricks, enough to create this wall. Now, I find that this kind of structure extremely interesting because these mud brick walls, partition walls, have 2 very important properties. They are light and they are thin. And this means that they have been used very much extensively on the upper floors to create partition walls and make separations and rearrange the whole room arrangement on the upper floor by using such light partition walls, which can very easily stand on the beam floors. You don't need to have a wall underneath, okay? And they do not take much space because they are thin. So I'll show you later on. You will see that the West House, where we know everything about this building, the ground floor and the upper floor, completely preserved, are very different because you have these partition walls changing the whole circulation and the whole function of the rooms on the upper floor. The reason I am emphasizing this is that when you go to other places like Crete, for example, where the upper story does not survive in houses, it is very easy to think that, well, we're talking about prehistoric times. What could they do? I mean, what we see at ground floor would have been repeated on the upper floor. No, this is not the case. They were so advanced, so sophisticated, they found ways of working with architecture in a very, in many different ways. Okay, we have all sorts of details about the beams or the ceilings. I'll skip this one. Something else which is interesting that we know very well from Akrotiri, but we also know from Crete, especially from art, is that roofs were flat, naturally flat. I mean, the climate was such that you need flat roofs. But what we did not know, is that these were functional roofs. Remember I mentioned that there are no courtyards at Akrotiri. There is no such open space. Which means that because there is a need for open air space, the functions that were meant for open air space are covered by the flat roofs. This is a beautiful model, a clay model of a house from Crete. It's 50 by 50 centimeters. It's quite big. It has amazing details, like these engraved lines that show timber reinforcement, details of the windows, details of so many things, but most important, it shows that the roofs were not only functional because there's a staircase inside going up, but they are also sheltered because we're talking of strong sun, so you need a shelter. This, in a way, is the beginning of a second story as well, okay? Colonnades are very popular in Crete. They go together with palatial architecture. Here is what Evans did, where his restorations are famous, if not notorious. But he knew Minoan architecture very, very well. So what he did, however, is this is cement, which was presumably timber, and he has used colors he found in pieces, fragments of wall paintings. It may be so, after all, we never know. They may have, painted the timber trunks of the columns. Anyway, at Akrotiri, we do not have colonnades, but we do have stone bases of columns. This is the lower part is the part that is embedded like a foundation part, and the upper part projects above the floor. And in almost all cases, you can't see it; it's too faded. We see a brownish circle, which is the trunk, the timber trunk. So we know the diameter of the trunk, we know that it's smaller than this dimension, and so on. And at Akrotiri, the only function of a column is for this room, which is a large room. This is the upper story of the West House. Entrance, staircase, you go up, and the first room you enter is this. It's a very big room, 5 by 5 meters. Something I hear very often when I am at Akrotiri. People say, "Oh, these people had so small rooms and so low." And it's not true. The ground floor, yes, it was small and low ceiling because they were workshops and storage. But the upper floor, which is domestic and reception hall here. This room, by the way, which is typical, we find it almost all the houses have been excavated to date. This is where we find looms, loom weights. Many here, 400 loom weights were found here. Big windows. So this was a beautiful, large workshop for looms, and you can imagine people working here. Here is another such room of the upper floor with stone base still in situ. You see the beautiful slabs here, but just to give you an idea of how difficult the excavation. This is a photograph from the very beginning of the excavation. You see all the layered pumice here. What you're looking at is the upper floor. So underneath there is a ground floor. So this is the huge dilemma for an archaeologist. What do I do? Do I keep this beautiful image of the upper floor, or do I dig in order to see what lies underneath? What if you have a tablet underneath? What if, this is a seriously difficult question for me as an architect, because now I know that there was only a kitchen underneath. Anyway, it's a pity because this was really beautiful. May I just add here that these slabs are extremely heavy, they are volcanic, and if you clean them, again, coming back to color, they are gray, shiny, they have shiny particles, dark gray, shiny particles, and the interstices in between, they are plastered and painted dark red, Minoan red. So color everywhere. Well, Marinatos took these away, and underneath there was a kitchen. Entrance, main staircase. All the architecture of Akrotiri and Minoan Crete is based on the idea of model and variations, to my understanding, meaning that there's a lot of standardization. And for standardization to be effective, you need experience, you need a lot of things. So typical, everywhere, all the entrances lead into a main staircase with 2 flights and a middle landing. This is the idea, the concept, and this is the variations according to the circumstances of each building. You see that you have 2 flights and a middle landing, and notice that in several instances from the middle landing, halfway up, there is a door leading somewhere. Okay, keep this in mind for a moment. Now, again, there is so much information. Here is a collapsed flight of steps, but it didn't exactly collapse. It laid upon the pumice. So you have all the information here. You have all the beams. If I put my hand inside and I can feel the smaller beams, the reeds, so I can restore exactly how this worked. You have a very large beam here, which is this one, and so on. This drawing is in itself, architects and the technical audience will estimate and understand this better perhaps, is amazing because what they've done, first of all, this is very important, I must say that these staircases at the entrance, they go all the way up to the terrace, which means they go up first floor, second floor, and they go all the way up to the staircase, to the roof. Again, it's, believe me, not an easy thing to design a staircase like that and structurally to make it safe. The safe part is due to the fact that it's mostly relying on the timber frame. The timber frame you see everywhere. I won't go into details because it's too difficult to describe, but it is very strong evidence of their knowledge of what they were doing and how timber worked in terms of load-bearing activities. Now, from the architectural point of view, not the technical, this staircase, I mean, they drive me crazy, really. Look what's going on here. They are not satisfied with a simple staircase. They start making multiple staircases, combining 2 and 3 staircases. I mean, whoops, sorry. As you move up, I have difficulty even describing this one. This is an entrance. You go up the staircase, a middle landing. You continue if you want to go up to the roof, or you find some other steps here. You go down and down. You find a middle landing. You go down to a basement, or you go up. Okay. This staircase is this one here. Just in case you don't believe me, it exists. These 3 steps. Anyway, that's it. This is the last part that goes down to the basement. Sometimes I think, that if I was a child, the children rather, playing hide and seek in my known building, especially at the Palace of Knossos, it would have been great fun. You would never find one another, And look at this again. This is from Knossos, from the palace. The domestic quarters, you have this situation here with the halls, my known halls, and so on. 3 staircases, as if one was not enough. 3 staircases. They cover, the circulation altogether is more than the space covered by the rooms themselves. So important was the idea of circulation. To me, these staircases, generally, minor staircase, are the equivalent of doors. Very much like doors connect spaces at the horizontal, staircases connect spaces at the vertical. Very interesting in itself. Again, this standardized architecture, all entrances. Inside there's the staircase we were talking about. By the door, there's always a window. Why? Because of the presence of a staircase behind. Even today, the legislation is obligatory to have a window for natural light where you have a staircase. So this is a typical picture of an entrance. Again, from the structural point of view, you have all the details of a timber frame. You see here, there's an ashlar cornerstone, and it has some little holes. You have the dowels and mortises system. We know this system from classical architecture with one big difference. In classical architecture, dowels and mortises are used to join stone to stone. In prehistoric architecture, it's never the case. It's always to join stone with wood. So this situation here with 3 such dowels and mortises and these short beams, what they do is they actually hold the big frame of the opening here. So in terms of a lateral force, earthquake, these, because they are steady on the ash stone, they will keep this from being deformed. Okay? And now comes the best part. The pier and door partition, the polytheron as we call it in Greek, is a true innovation of the Minoan world. It's the same system, carrying load-bearing system of one single door. Then they realized that they can just go on adding doors and actually taking away a whole wall and putting instead a series of doors. This was the best they can do in joining rooms one to another, or joining a room, an inside room with an outside space as we see it here. This is the pier and door partition. Depending on what you do with the doors, it can function as a wall, if wall is closed, as one door, or as a void. Okay, so it's a multifunctional tool for architectural design. Very wise, very wise. You have so many different, okay, sorry. This I will just shortly. Pray tell me what is the difference between what I showed you before and the technology like this. Okay, that's enough. Akrotiri, we have a beautiful building with such pier and door partitions, not just one, but all around here. You can see in yellow the amount of timber which is involved in the construction of this building. And mind you, what we are looking at is ground floor. This building has 2 more stories above. And they are actually, they have faith in the performance of the wood, because what you see here, you will see next photograph, it has a wall above. This is it. And above, there's a rubble wall with a door. So, it's on full, meanwhile. And just to bring it to the present, I think that it's very much the same concept, the same understanding of this flow of movement and flow of connection between spaces that you find in Crete, in Frank Lloyd Wright, in Japan. It's very much the same. In fact, there is much in common to my understanding between Minoan and Japanese architecture, but again, this is a lecture in its own right. Windows and innovation of the Minoan world. It's the same thing like the door in terms of the structure, so I won't go into details. You have a pier and window partition following the idea of the pier and door partition. We know because we have the imprints here of the timber. So this is a safe reconstruction drawing. We have all the details we want for the construction of the timber frame of the windows. Again, you see it here. And again, the pier and window partitions, you have this beautiful room on the upper floor of the West House with the famous drawings of the fishermen. This is the pavement I was talking about before, but not like this, really shiny. Pier and window partitions everywhere. This room has 4 sides. 2 of them are windows, the other 2 are cupboards and doors. This is what I wanted to show you because, wait, come on. What am I doing? It's very sensitive. Okay. The idea, the concept is so very modern. Modernism, 20th century, because it's all designed along a 3-dimensional grid, as you see it here. Even these parts here are drawings. They have the artist has drawn the continuation of this beam, and so it's like something like that in terms of design, which I find that it's very similar to what Le Corbusier was using as a concept with his panel exercise. This is accessibility, what we were looking before. And if you simplify the design, you have something that's very similar to Le Corbusier's idea. Finally, I will end with, again, another lecture, wall paintings, because they are so beautiful, so famous. All the buildings, you see the stars here, this means where we have found wall paintings. On the upper floor, all these houses, because they are houses, except for these 2 large buildings, which are not houses, some public function, all the other are typical houses, and they have one such room with wall paintings. They are beautiful, you see like this one here, very well preserved at Akrotiri. Can you see the window here? Even the jambs of the windows have wall paintings, and they are showing flower pots with flowers. This is interesting because the window means that both the inhabitants and the passers-by could look and enjoy this picture. Extrovert character again. You have many, I will not say more, But these are they're not only beautiful, they are very informative. They tell us so much about their dresses. I mean, colleagues who are studying and working with the dresses are absolutely fascinated with the complexity and the sophistication of all this construction. We know about their jewelry, we know about their rituals, shaved hair, rite de passage, and so on. So altogether, there are many, many things that make the Minoans to us so familiar, although they are so far apart and there is nothing that connects them. What I've called common traits in asymptote trajectories. You can interpret this in any way you like. I mean, how can this happen? How can this happen? I leave this for the discussion afterwards. Needless to say, Minoan culture was an inspiration for the modern movement also. This is Fortuny with his well-known shoals, which copy very much Minoan designs. To the left, of course, is a wall painting from Akrotiri. And the end is something much more mundane, much more practical, but I think it's the top evidence for the very, very high living standards that these people enjoyed. And this is a toilet, a private lavatory in a house on the upper story. This is the ground floor of the building, this is the upper floor, and here with mud brick walls, separated is a small place here, which is what you see, perfectly preserved. Two benches here, there is a hole beneath, and there is a whole system of construction here for the sewage to go into the sewage manhole and so on. Okay, wait a minute. This pit, which is outside the building, is very interesting again. It does three things. It connects the private lavatory to the sewer, public sewer outside. It manages height difference because it comes here and then it falls down because of the inclination of the land, and changes direction. You can't see it here, but this changes afterwards, exactly as we would have drawn it today. So if you want, I can show you the film 5 minutes, or we can stop here and move to discussion.
I think we want to see the small
I thought so.
the movie, yes.
Okay.
That
All
will
right,
be
then.
important.
So how do I do this now? And show.
On the southern coast of Santorini, archaeologists are bringing to light a cosmopolitan harbour town which, like Pompeii, was buried under a thick layer of volcanic ash some 3,500 years ago. The houses revealed so far speak of the high standard of living the citizens enjoyed. One of them is the so-called West House. As is the case with all the buildings, it's multi-storied. On the ground floor are workshops and storerooms, and on the upper floor are the domestic apartments. Colourful dressed stones frame the windows and the corners of the building. Most impressive, however, are the multiple windows that give light to a very special room on the first floor. All the surfaces were covered with wall paintings related to the sea, young fishermen proudly displaying their catch, while a frieze above the windows recounts nautical expeditions to faraway places. On the other two sides of the room were doors and cupboards which closed with double leaves. They were painted red inside and contained high-quality objects. The floor was paved with dark volcanic slabs, and the interstices were also painted red. Light and colour prevailed everywhere. Wall paintings adorned the adjacent room as well. Even the jambs of the window were decorated. Next to it, secluded by mud brick walls, is an unexpected for the time find, a lavatory. It consists of 2 built benches placed in a recess of the wall. The gap in between corresponds to a vertical conduit of clay pipes that leads to a pit outside the house, connected to the public sewerage system of the city. Slabs found during the excavation suggest that a kind of siphon may have existed at the bottom of the conduit. Let us now explore the house properly, passing through the entrance door. To the left, a door leads to the workshops and the storage rooms. To the right, a double door controls access to the domestic apartments above. The first room is bright and spacious. This is where weaving took place, as indicated by the numerous loom weights found during excavation. Sails for the boats were also produced here. At the other end of the room, we enter the beautiful apartment with the wall paintings. With so many windows all around, it looks more like a roofed veranda. A door to the right opens onto a small corridor and a steep service staircase that leads to the storerooms below. Next to it, there is a cupboard full of vases, and at the end of the corridor, a storage room, also packed with vases, neatly placed on shelves, and a built bench with 2 jars at the other corner. A second door takes us through to the main staircase so that we may leave without having to go back through the rooms we passed before. The staircase continues all the way up to the roof. For a house that had no courtyards, the flat roof was a valuable substitute and played an important role in everyday life. On some special days, the island of Crete may have been visible from here.
Okay, thank you. No.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Palyvou. No matter how many times we listen to your talks, they are always so enjoyable, and your theories on Minoan architecture are just fascinating. So we are very grateful for the wonderful lecture today. We always have many things to learn still from you. Maybe we have some questions. The audience, maybe we want to ask some things on Minoan architecture and whatever we would like. Do we have any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course. Yes.
I mean, we all knew this, but there's a lot of wood, and I don't think there's many trees on Santorini. So, I mean, they seem to, almost, I wouldn't say waste wood, but there's so much wood that must have been a considerable part of their imports. And my second question, because I can't stay on, is whether through the the holes they made for the roof, the new roof, if the Middle Bronze Age architecture is a little bit known and these wooden installations, these anti-seismic devices already exist in the Middle Bronze Age, or would it be really Neopalatial borrowing from Crete?
Yeah. Yes, Jan, very good points. The first, you're absolutely right. They did import. They had to import. I mean, and the sizes of the beams for 63, for example, are quite big. I'm quite certain that they imported timber. They had, I guess, the ships to do that. So they imported it from Crete. Where else? As for your second question, well, we really don't know much, very little about the Middle Minoan because it lies underneath the well-preserved late Bronze Age settlement. You know that well, of course. I can't think of any indications that they used timber in such a sophisticated way. There are, I think, some indications of horizontal timber reinforcement, but that's as far as it goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
We hope that the question was, the answer was adequate. Thank you, Dr. Driessen. Do we have any other questions?
I would like to say some words because I'm very happy to see this lecture. Thank you very much, Professor. And I think that it's very close to what we think together with you, that these schemes of construction of houses are very ancient, and this is very deep tradition of spaces, of organization of spaces. It was amazing for me to see the same tradition, the same art of construction of houses, like in ancient time in Balkans also. So thank you very much. It was very nice for me to listen and to see your lecture. Thank you.
Well, it would be nice if we could put the two together and see them, one next to the other.
Yeah. I'm sure we will do this.
Not
for sure.
so strange as one might think, because the norms of nature haven't changed. I mean, you have the same forces to deal with. The notion that when you have an earthquake, you have lateral forces is there in front of your eyes. So I guess it's people reacting in a very logical and direct way to the same problems all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure this logic, how far we can take it. There is a point after which each culture, let's say a group of people, will come up with new ideas.
Of course, but there is the roots. The roots are very similar and very in philosophy science very similar. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jordanova. We have a question from Dr. Pomader.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this conference. Always very impressive. I will go back to a very small detail, but I wanted to ask you about all these timbers, and especially the vertical timbers in the walls. Do you have evidence to know if they were plastered or they were visible? Because we always have this question in Crete, where we don't have this very good evidence. So I don't remember if you can see it in Akrotiri.
Ah, that's one of the dramas of my life now, because I cannot be 100% sure. There are, because even if there was some plaster, at the moment that the timber has gone, it doesn't stay anymore. So it's not there. You don't find it, even in Akrotiri. But there are indications that lime plaster from the wall continued into the area of the disintegrated timber. Now, would that mean continued and then stopped, or continued and covered the whole thing? We can't be sure about that. I'm waiting to find a hole where all the sides are preserved, and then I would be sure for that. But if I were to guess, I think that they were plastered.
Okay. Thank you. Difficult to understand, but thank you.
With Akrotiri, we are spoiled because there's so much there, and what is not there, it shouldn't be like that. So we'll find the answer at some point.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question from Bastien Rueff.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
I was wondering about these paved floors that you mentioned, the very shiny stones. I was wondering if you observe a sort of specific pattern in the way the stones are put together. And yeah, if you could tell us more about this, and also if you think that their shininess could be related to the will of increasing the light, the income of light within the rooms.
Okay, well, yes, indeed, there is a pattern. What they do is they go round the room. They place a zone of slabs and make. Wait a minute, how can I describe this? First, they make one row of stones at the periphery of the room. Then they set a second row inside, and at the middle you have often two large orthogonal slabs that make a square, something like that. In Crete, you can see the pattern much better. At Akrotiri is what I say, so it's much more simple. And your other point was about the shininess of the stones.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that they can add any light. They're not so bright. I mean, they are tiny little particles which are shiny. Otherwise, the stones themselves are dark gray. They are very dark. But this is the material available to them. I can guess again that they did use these because of their beauty, because they shined like that. But that's as far as I can go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
I would like to ask a question to Mrs. Palyvou if it's not too late. Actually, one remark and one question. As you said at the beginning, this series of lectures is about dialogues between past and present. And in this respect, I'd say that unlike Professor Jordanova, I have the impression that this very modern and very yes, truly modern in all senses of the term architecture, Minoan architecture at Santorini, is very different from the traditional architecture at Santorini, where the houses are low, with few openings. I mean, all these elements that you presented as, that you highlighted as being really modern and who make this architecture look familiar to us. is not exactly what is found in the same place today. So what would you say about this contrast? I think that the local conditions are, of course, important for the selection of some technical solutions, materials, etc. But maybe the place does not explain everything all alone.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. That's the whole idea. That's the beauty of architecture, if I may say so. The same place, you can find a large variety of architectural forms, because I'm thinking of Amos Rapoport and his very wise, ideas of cultural factors being more influential than actual what the land offers. In fact, I tried at some point, I've written an article somewhere, trying to see Santorini throughout the history and how many very, very different architectural solutions to the same question mark needs, human needs, how many different there are. And it's always the social factor, which is, I think, the most important and plays. But also, I mean, the need to protect from earthquakes is also something which is compulsory, something that you need to take care of. And they do that in a variety of ways again. You have to combine and sort of see the equilibrium between security and the needs, the social needs. I mean, the Minoans obviously were extroverts, so they wanted big windows. They wanted this. They wanted rooms that could join together with, with all these pier and door partitions. So this wanting, this need, even if it's not a basic need, such as eating, drinking, sleeping, it's still a social need which is fundamental for their way of life. So they have to adjust architecture to this idea. Even if, and then they have to find technical solutions to secure their choice from the technical point of view. I believe that all this timber, this very fascinating timber structures that we see in Minoan architecture is the result exactly of the need to have a light, pierced architecture. So it's one brings the other, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. So just the second question, it's about light, exactly, because we've all been in the Cyclades. Light is very nice, but sometimes we suffer from too much light in in the hot season. So did they have? Do we have evidence about ways of piles of wood closing the windows, or any system for modulating the light like they did with doors, for example?
Yeah. Well, this question goes together with Maya's question, which means that I do not have the answer to this clearly. They've been looking like crazy for shutters. The multiple windows cannot have shutters, to my understanding. They are so complex that it's difficult. And then we found almost all pier and window partitions have vases and pots and things on the shelves, on the seals of the windows. So you couldn't have shutters. So the conclusion to my understanding is that they did not use, at least in multiple windows, they didn't use shutters. In single windows, Marinatos, the first excavator, mentions one instance where he believes he found the imprint of a shutter. I remind you that we do have imprints of doors, door leaves. So why not find the imprint of a shutter? But there's only one mention without a photograph, without a sketch, just words. So, but reading again Amos Rappaport, I saw that there are so many other ways of controlling humidity, climatic changes, and light, if you wish, by using straw, okay, or some
Tissues, maybe?
tissues, exactly. So I feel I have evidence of one case where the imprint of a straw mat was found at some point. So, I mean, there's too much light. And what's more, the room with the multiple windows on two sides, they are facing north. What about the wind? I mean, the Aegean is notorious for northern winds. So that's as far as I can get, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. We see people clapping. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to watching your lectures too. Very intrigued by now.
Yes, please. We have to mention that our lectures are available on YouTube and the website of our of the School of Architecture in at the Democritus University of Thrace. So you can always see the previous lectures there. So thank you all for being here with us. We will see you next week with Vasilis Evangelidis on Roman architecture, and it will be the last lecture of our this semester. So good night.
There is a lot of Roman architecture on Santorini. It will be nice to compare with the prehistoric architecture.
I'm sure we will find many things to compare during these lectures. So good night. Thank you all very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Au revoir. Γεια σας.
Good night.